I checked my watch. 9:55 and 51 seconds. Like clockwork, Tabitha's phone vibrated upstairs, and seconds later she excused herself to the bathroom for the third time this evening. Fascinating how predictable betrayal can be. Simon, you're up. Are you in or out? Carter pushed the chips toward me, breaking my concentration. Sorry, gentlemen. My mind was elsewhere. I tossed 2 blue chips into the growing pile. Call. The weekly poker game at my house served multiple purposes. Entertainment, certainly, but also, as any former MI6 operative would appreciate, perfect cover for observation. Derek leaned back in his chair. Speaking of minds elsewhere, how's that security consulting business treating you these days? Pays the bills, I answered, watching Richard's micro-expressions as he studied his cards. Though not as exciting as the old days. What they didn't need to know was that my intelligence career had never truly ended. Retired on paper, perhaps, but Gideon still called when certain situations arose. As Williams revealed his winning hand, I caught a glimpse of a dark sedan parked 2 houses down. Too nondescript, too patient. Someone was watching my home. The front door opened as my guest departed, and Tabitha descended the stairs in pristine yoga attire, not a hair out of place for someone supposedly doing intense stretches in her studio. Great session, she smiled, kissing my cheek. I've been working on proposals for expanding the studio. Matthew Rivers thinks we could add hot yoga classes. There it was, the subtle change in her voice when she said his name. Matthew Rivers. I returned her smile, noting how her eyes didn't quite meet mine. That sounds promising. When's your investor meeting? Tomorrow morning, she answered vaguely, offering no time or location. Later that night, my secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Gideon. Unusual activity detected in local networks. Stay alert. Indeed. The game was already in motion. I woke at 5 in the morning, a habit from my field days that never quite left me. Through a gap in the curtains, I spotted the same dark sedan creeping past our house. Not a coincidence. My phone vibrated. Nathan Langley, ex-police colleague turned private investigator. Simon, those property purchases you asked about? They match locations Tabitha mentioned for her seminars. All bought through shell companies. Thanks, Nathan. Keep digging. Tabitha stirred beside me, her breathing too measured for someone truly asleep. I'd seen enough feigned sleep during interrogations to recognize the pattern. Later that morning, she emerged dressed in business attire rather than yoga clothes. Emergency meeting about zoning issues at the new location, she explained, spreading jam on her toast with careful precision. Might be late tonight. I have contacts at city planning who could help, I offered. She declined too quickly. Matthew will handle it. As she pulled out of the driveway, I noticed her checking the rearview mirror repeatedly, an amateur attempt at counter-surveillance. My doorbell rang unexpectedly. Alice, my psychologist sister, stood on the porch with concern etched across her face. You've lost weight, she observed, following me to the kitchen. And you seem tense. Just work, I lied. She hesitated before speaking. I saw Tabitha yesterday at the Peninsula Hotel, wearing a business suit. Wasn't she supposed to be at a yoga seminar? The pieces were falling into place. That evening, as I reviewed Nathan's files, Buddy, our normally friendly golden retriever, growled when Tabitha entered. She laughed it off. He smells other dogs from the studio. But Buddy had never growled at her before, and animals sense deception far better than humans. My wife was lying, and now I needed to know why. The annual charity gala was in full swing when I overheard Tabitha's hushed phone conversation from behind a marble column. We need to accelerate, he's figuring it out, she whispered urgently. I shifted slightly and her eyes snapped up, catching mine. The transformation was immediate. Her posture softened, her voice warmed, and a practiced smile spread across her face. Simon. I was just telling my yoga client about our donation. She slipped her phone into her clutch bag. Everything all right? You look concerned. Who were you talking to just now? Her expression hardened. Are you spying on me? Her voice rose deliberately. This controlling behavior has to stop. Several heads turned our way. Classic manipulation, creating a public scene where confronting her would make me appear unstable. You're tracking my phone, aren't you? Tabitha continued, louder still. Checking my emails? Tears appeared at the corners of her perfectly made-up eyes. She'd created her narrative, the controlling husband stifling his wife's independence. I recognized the tactic from interrogation resistance training: become the victim before you can be labeled the perpetrator. That night, while Tabitha slept, I reviewed the security footage from our garden cameras. The recordings showed her making numerous calls from the far corner, where she thought she was out of range. In one conversation, her words chilled me, "I don't care how it's done. He's becoming a problem and problems need to be eliminated." My phone vibrated with a message from Gideon, "Meeting tomorrow, usual place." The pieces aligned with devastating clarity. Tabitha and Matthew weren't just having an affair, they were planning to remove me permanently. I closed the laptop, my decision made. It was time to stop playing defense. From this moment on, I would be the hunter, not the hunted. The surveillance feed on my tablet showed Tabitha entering her yoga studio. Precisely 27 minutes later, a silver Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Matthew Rivers stepped out, straightening his designer tie before heading inside. My secure phone buzzed. "Gideon. You're losing focus, Jackson. Your reports on local real estate transactions aren't exactly priority intelligence." "It's all connected," I insisted, watching another trainee fail the evasion drill. Today's MI6 recruits were getting sloppy. "Again?" I barked at the young agent sprawled on the training mat. My colleagues had noticed my increasingly harsh methods, but few knew the reason behind my deteriorating patience. After the session, Jenna Kearney from across the street approached me in the supermarket parking lot. "Simon, I've been meaning to talk to you." She glanced around nervously. "Several neighbors have noticed, well, an inappropriate closeness between Tabitha and that yoga instructor." "I appreciate your concern, Jenna. And Greg, he works at First National, he's heard rumors about suspicious transactions and missing funds." I thanked her and found an encrypted message waiting on my secure tablet from Gwen Barrett, Matthew's ex-wife. "Matthew targets successful women. He gains their trust, then exploits their resources. Be careful." When Tabitha returned home that evening, she announced she'd joined a theater group. "I thought you were focused on expanding the studio," I remarked casually. "I can do both," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "The first rehearsal is Thursday night." Another clever move. The theater provided yet another gap in my surveillance network. Another excuse to be away from home during unaccounted hours. The chess pieces were moving faster now. But what Tabitha didn't realize was that I'd spent my career anticipating my opponent's strategies 3 moves ahead. And I was just getting started. "Your blood pressure is concerning, Simon," Dr. Dean Jasper said, removing the cuff from my arm. "Stress levels are through the roof. What's going on?" I offered a vague excuse about work pressure, but my mind was on the alert that had pinged on my phone moments before our appointment. Tabitha had checked into a downtown hotel, nowhere near her usual routes. That afternoon, during our marriage counseling session, Tabitha continued her performance. "I feel like I'm constantly being watched," she told Dr. Phillips, her voice carefully modulated to convey vulnerability. "He tracks my every move." The therapist gave me a disapproving glance. I remained silent, playing the role of the defensive husband while gathering intelligence. Back at my office, I reviewed the financial records Nathan had provided. Matthew's business empire showed signs of stress, leveraged assets, cash flow problems, and questionable accounting practices. I returned to find firefighters outside my private office. The blaze had destroyed most of my physical documentation. "Found traces of accelerant," the investigator told me quietly. "Professional job." Ironically, the attack revealed more than it concealed. Only someone with intimate knowledge of my routines would know when the office would be empty. The arson inadvertently exposed another branch of Matthew's network. That evening, a message from Gideon reminded me that whatever I was planning couldn't utilize official MI6 resources. I was on my own. In the reinforced basement of my home, a space Tabitha believed was simply storage, I began preparing my countermove. The room contained equipment from my active service days. Surveillance gear, weapons, and communication devices untraceable to either my personal or professional identities. As I loaded a secure tablet with Matthew's financial records, I allowed myself a grim smile. They thought they were dismantling my life piece by piece. They had no idea what was coming. Gideon's expression darkened as we sat in the back corner of the nearly empty cafe. "Your productivity at MI6 has dropped significantly, Simon. The higher-ups are asking questions." "My marriage is compromised," I admitted, stirring my untouched coffee. "But I'll handle it myself. You know we can provide official support." "No," I cut him off. "This stays off the books." Later that afternoon, I met Trina Gardner, former CIA operative and one of the few people I trusted completely. "Your wife's lover has been meeting with Victor Cade's people," she said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "Low-level criminals, but dangerous." I examined the surveillance photos. They've been tracking my morning running route. There's more. Trina tilted her head toward my house. Listen. From the open kitchen window, Tabitha's voice carried across the garden as she shouted into her phone. The rage in her tone contradicted the gentle yoga instructor persona she presented to the world. That evening, my surveillance network flagged Matthew entering a bar in a rough Chicago neighborhood. Nathan's message confirmed my suspicions. Rivers is trying to recruit bigger players. He's getting desperate. The next day, my hidden camera at Tabitha's studio captured an unexpected confrontation. Emma Brooks, Tabitha's mother, stormed into the lobby. "You're destroying your marriage to Simon?" Emma's voice crackled through my earpiece. "And don't think I don't know about Matthew's other women." Tabitha's face hardened. "Simon's paranoia has turned everyone against me. I'm done with all of you." At the local gym, I intensified my training regimen. A young man named Ian Hunter recognized the combat move I executed. "Special Forces technique," he commented, his eyes knowing. "By the way, there are men watching your house." That night, my systems detected a sophisticated cyber attack. I allowed it partial success, feeding disinformation to whoever was probing my defenses. The game had entered a new phase. Crystal chandeliers glittered above the annual charity ball at the Chicago Art Institute. I observed Tabitha across the room, radiant in her designer gown, working the crowd with practiced charm. Then she spotted me and her demeanor shifted instantly. "You're tracking my phone," she accused loudly, striding toward me. "Checking my emails. I can't live like this anymore." Heads turned as tears appeared on her perfectly made-up face. She'd calculated the scene perfectly, the distraught wife confronting her controlling husband in public. From the corner of my eye, I caught Matthew watching with barely concealed satisfaction. "Let's discuss this at home," I suggested quietly. "So you can continue monitoring my every move?" Her voice cracked with manufactured emotion. I played my part, the confused, defensive husband, while cataloging every witness to her performance. Later that night, reviewing surveillance footage, I found the evidence I'd been waiting for. Tabitha on a call with Matthew, laughing dismissively. "He's just a retired cop," she said, her voice entirely different from her public persona. Matthew's response chilled me. "His elimination during tomorrow's morning run is already in motion." I immediately activated Protocol 0 on my secure systems with the authorization code, Sierra Juliet 1984. At 4:30 the next morning, my phone vibrated with a message, "Team Alpha arriving in 20 minutes. Through my bedroom window, I spotted 3 shadowy figures positioned along my usual running route. They'd chosen their ambush points well. I dressed in my running gear, feeling Tabitha's eyes on me from our bed. She was pretending to sleep, but her breathing pattern betrayed her wakefulness. "Going for my run," I announced casually. "Back in an hour." The first attacker made his move as I entered the park, a knife flashing in the pre-dawn light. I neutralized him with a precise strike to the throat. My team converged silently, apprehending all 3 assailants without witnesses or recordings. As I questioned the first attacker about Matthew Rivers, I knew the real operation had just begun. 2 hours after the attempted attack, I stood in our improvised command center as Trina Gardner reviewed the morning's footage. "Matthew hired these amateurs through a middleman, Tommy Pierce," she reported. "Pierce has gambling debts to Victor Cade. My sister Alice studied the psychological profiles spread across the table. Tabitha displays clear narcissistic patterns," she observed. "She's not just following Matthew, she's an active participant. The evidence suggests she enjoys the power play. And she's been siphoning money from the yoga studio," Trina added, "converting it to cryptocurrency." Gideon leaned against the wall, arms crossed. 3 of Tommy Pierce's known associates were found unconscious near the park. No witnesses, no reports filed. "Matthew's meeting Victor Cade at the Drake Hotel right now," Ian Hunter announced, entering the room. "Our informants say he's nervous, drinking heavily and making anxious calls from the bar." I nodded, making my decision. Initiate Phase 2. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Logan prepared infiltration equipment while Sierra assembled architectural plans of all of Matthew's business properties. I allowed Tabitha to continue moving money offshore, knowing each transfer was being tracked and documented. The more crimes she committed, the stronger our case became. This morning's attackers were amateurs, Trina noted. Either a desperate attempt or simply reconnaissance. "Next time they'll send professionals," I agreed. As my team developed detailed infiltration plans for every critical location, I couldn't help but feel a cold satisfaction. While Tabitha and Matthew thought they were winning, Operation Black Dawn was already in motion. They believed they were orchestrating my downfall, but in reality they were surrounded. Every move they made provided us with more evidence, more leverage, more opportunities. The people they'd surrounded themselves with, criminals, bankers, lawyers, all had prices or pressure points. And we'd found them all. The endgame was approaching faster than they could possibly realize. Matthew Rivers paced his executive office at Rivers Enterprises, his designer suit unable to mask his growing anxiety. "Mr. Rivers, the board is asking about the financial losses across our Chicago properties," his assistant said from the doorway. "And there are problems with the permits." "Tell them I'll handle it," he snapped. My surveillance feed showed his face contorting with rage as his phone rang. The Davidson investor was backing out of the deal without explanation. Across town, Tabitha visited her parents' home, a desperate move I hadn't anticipated. "Simon is manipulating everyone against me," she pleaded, her voice breaking. Emma Brooks regarded her daughter coldly. "We know about your yoga retreats in Miami. Stop lying to us, Tabitha." Meanwhile, my team executed our plan with military precision. Logan undermined Matthew's legitimate businesses through contract disputes and bureaucratic delays. Sierra's cyber intelligence unit penetrated his corporate networks, methodically documenting every illicit transaction. Cade's syndicate is losing patience with Rivers' empty promises, Ibrahim reported from his surveillance position. They're demanding results. The most damning evidence came from Trina's analysis of Matthew's documents, a human trafficking operation disguised as specialized coaching staff for the yoga studio network. Women from Eastern Europe were being brought in under false pretenses. "Tabitha signed all the staffing paperwork," Trina noted grimly. "She's implicated in every crime." Matthew made increasingly desperate calls to his contacts, seeking support that wouldn't come. "3 federal agencies have opened investigations," Gideon warned. "We didn't initiate them." His empire was already crumbling. Sierra monitored Tabitha's PR campaign gaining traction. Local media was broadcasting her version, Simon as the abusive ex-cop. "Someone with inside access has compromised our surveillance systems," Logan discovered. As Tabitha's lawyers filed divorce papers and a restraining order, my team intensified the pressure, spreading disinformation throughout Matthew's network. The rumors that Matthew had betrayed his associates began to circulate. His world was collapsing, exactly as planned. Matthew Rivers' business empire collapsed like a house of cards. His final desperate attempts to salvage the situation only accelerated his downfall. My team intercepted Tabitha's frantic calls to offshore banks. Her attempt to flee to the Cayman Islands was thwarted by passport discrepancies at the airport. Emma Brooks and my sister Alice had gathered testimonies against Tabitha, while Matthew's criminal connections abandoned him one by one. The final confrontation occurred in a private parking garage. Hidden cameras captured Tabitha and Matthew arguing bitterly, each blaming the other for their unraveling plans. "You promised he'd be eliminated," Tabitha hissed. "And you promised financial backing," Matthew countered. 20 minutes later, federal agents arrested Matthew for racketeering, attempted murder, human trafficking, and conspiracy to commit fraud. His former associates, facing lengthy sentences themselves, eagerly testified against him. Tabitha faced her own trial, with prosecutors presenting evidence of her involvement in trafficking and the conspiracy against me. The judge showed no mercy. 6 months later, I conducted training for MI6 recruits, my story now transformed into educational modules for the intelligence community. "Your experience has proven invaluable," Gideon said, offering me a position creating a specialized consulting division. I founded Jackson Security Consultancy with Trina, Alice, and other team members. Our mission: helping individuals and organizations protect themselves from sophisticated threats. In a federal prison, Tabitha admitted to her counselor, "I never realized Simon was always several steps ahead." Matthew, cooperating with authorities in witness protection, knew he could never return to his former life. 10 years later, I addressed the International Security Conference in London. My wife, Catherine Miller Jackson, a former prosecutor who understood both the legal and personal dimensions of betrayal, sat in the front row. Our 6-year-old twins, Sierra and Alice, waited at our hotel with their nanny. Jackson Consultancy now occupied the top floors of a prominent Chicago skyscraper. The former yoga studio building had been converted into the Jackson Foundation Counseling Center. My story had become a testament to strength, justice, and rebirth, transforming personal tragedy into a mission to protect others from betrayal.